everyone.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this thing.
This meeting is being recorded. Thank you.
all right. Let's start this bad boy off. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cult Classic Movie Club. This is I just ruined my hair by doing that. Let's start again. no, AJ won't edit this out. So
I refuse.
So this is a Patreon tier where for $15 you can join us on these monthly movie club Zoom calls where we watch and discuss a film together, much like we do on the podcast. You can feel like you're part of the podcast.
There you go, guys. You can feel like you were contributing. Yay!
But as AJ has made clear multiple times, I am not part of the podcast.
Well, Richard's made it clear too.
So today we're talking about the 1986 Academy Award-winning film Platoon. Has everyone here watched it?
You're only allowed here if you've watched Platoon.
I think 4/5 of us have watched it.
What's that?
Really, it's like 4.5 men.
Yeah. I thought that was Mel, and I was like,
"Oh my god!"
It's okay, bud.
That's what you've started his like pop culture knowledge with.
2.5 men, of course, relevant because one of the two,
Oliver Stone,
changed his name
Creator
to
of
Chuck Lorre in the early 2000s.
So Platoon is a 1986 American war film written and directed by Oliver Stone, and it stars Willem Dafoe, Charlie Sheen, and Tom Bergeron.
Berenger.
I made that mistake too. Oh my
I thought
god!
it was the America's Funniest Home Videos guy.
Do you think Tom Bergeron has at least one role in his film history? Or like what? I don't. Is he an actor? Like
Maybe
he's
in like an Adam Sandler movie, like
What-
something like that.
Yeah. But do you
Yeah.
think he has one?
He's in an
role?
episode of The Muppets.
Yeah. But there's got to be like one like gritty war movie where he plays like a real intense character.
A Tom Berenger type.
Yeah. But like he's only in one scene, but it's like, hey, you know the guy from America's Funniest Home Videos? Here he is saying the F word. I don't know. Like, it's always interesting when you discover stuff like that.
Do y'all have like New Zealand's Funniest Home Videos?
Not really.
No, although a fun fact about Down Under Funniest Home Videos, there's like there was an Australian show called like Australia's Naughtiest Home Videos or something like that. And it was cancelled midway through its first episode. It was mostly just like videos of animals having sex with each other and stuff like that. And when they cut to ads the first time, the like head of the station called and was like, "Get this off the fucking air right now." And it never played the end of the episode.
Wow. What a great anecdote.
The true horror, canceling in the middle of your pilot.
Yeah.
Now about the Vietnam War.
Sorry. Tom Bergeron was in Gremlins.
Wow.
Really?
What?
Yeah, he was an uncredited television news reporter.
I thought you were
Oh.
talking about Tom Berenger for a second. I was like, yeah, I'm sure he's in plenty of stuff.
Very cool, Brent.
Did Mel show you that?
Yeah, so this is what is Platoon about? Mel?
Mel.
Never gonna get old. Not Mel, the joke.
Hopefully Mel gets old.
Yeah.
Since I wasn't on last week, I'll go ahead and go. Or last month, I guess. But
Weeks, months, it's all the same in 2021.
So Platoon is about Charlie Sheen's character is named
Chris
Taylor.
One of the rare Charlie Sheen roles where his character's name isn't Charlie.
Right. I'll go ahead and preface that I'm sure this entire talk we're going to be talking about everyone by their actual name instead of their characters because everyone is famous in this movie.
And also, now, thank you for reminding me by using the word preface. This is a pretty intense movie, so if you're watching this on YouTube later on, we're going to be discussing the heavy stuff that is in.
Yeah, I would recommend at least 3 years or older. You want some goldfish? Okay,
Well,
so
a whole new cast has joined Movie Club. Is your wife and son paying on Patreon, Brent? Hello.
now. No, so sorry. So Platoon is about Chris is this new green, army guy,
War
gets
guy,
dropped off
soldier.
Soldier man.
in the middle of the Vietnam War, and it's kind of about his struggle to cope with the culture that comes up.
Mel's reenacting this.
But yeah, the culture of being a soldier and like the line between good and evil and all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much it. He witnesses and partakes in some pretty horrible things that make him question his...
Made him the Charlie Sheen he is today.
Probably.
That's the first thing I want to bring up. Did you guys find it difficult to invest in Charlie Sheen? Because I did.
Yes.
I was like, anyone else, please.
One of my notes says, make a joke about Charlie Sheen stopping a rape but giving his partners STDs in real life.
Right? Like he has this super heroic move in the film where he like finds some of the soldiers in his platoon about to like sexually assault an 7-year-old Vietnamese girl. And he stops them and they're like spitting at him and he's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And it's this really, really upsetting, intense scene. And all I can think is like, isn't Charlie Sheen like probably a pedophile? Isn't that a thing? Isn't that a thing that circulated for a bit? It's one thing to have like an actor you mainly associate with comedy, whether it's funny or not, be like leading your very intense Vietnam War movie, but Charlie Sheen, I'd have preferred Adam Sandler to be the main character. A young Adam Sandler should have played this role.
I do want to say like on that though, because I watched this at work, and sitting the guy like sitting opposite my desk he's an older gentleman. He's quite a film buff, and I talked to him about. I asked him if he'd seen Platoon, and he said, and he kind of said years ago, and we had a bit of a chat about it, and he was like, "Oh, how's Charlie Sheen in it?" And I said, like, it's this thing where like Charlie Sheen is good in it, but everyone else is real good in it. And it's one of those things where it's like, it's not even like he's a weak link. It's just like, especially Tom Berenger and Willem Dafoe, like they both got nominated for Oscars and they're both like operating just on such like, yeah, it's incredible.
Tom Berenger really surprised me because I think of him as being like such a B movie, like I feel like most of the career that I saw was after this movie when he was trying to recreate that same energy, but, you know, as a good guy, I guess, but have that same caliber. And he just never, I don't know, I can't think of anything where I take him that seriously as I did in this.
Do you want to know, here's like, we on this podcast, we like to look up the age of actors and then look at actors of the same age and see, could they have played the role? Which actually reminded me, an actor that's the same age as Charlie Sheen, who was actually like read for the part of Chris, but was turned down because he was too cute, is Ben Stiller.
Oh, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sort of the Tropic Thunder vibes.
Yes, exactly. That's what he made Tropic Thunder. Oh my God.
Imagine the career trajectory for Ben Stiller if he started his career in Platoon.
I mean, would it be any crazier than Charlie Sheen? I thought.
Yeah.
You've also got the Mummy's Billy Zane.
Oh, but legit, like again, like I don't know. I think that would be better than Charlie Sheen. Not even just in
Jeffrey Dean
retrospect.
Morgan.
Yeah, not even just in retrospect. Jeffrey Dean Morgan Well, he's
Yeah.
because he's not Charlie Sheen. All those other actors are so much more famous than Jeffrey Dean Morgan, but he's kind of
Yeah.
like the perfect. Like that's a career. If his career didn't change after starring in Platoon, if it's exactly the same as what it is in this universe, you wouldn't be like, he starred in Platoon. But with Charlie Sheen, you're like, the guy from 2.5 Men starred in a Vietnam War movie. I thought the worst performance from Charlie Sheen in this movie is right at the end when he does a little monologue about like the horrors of war.
There's like voiceover.
Yeah, I thought it sucked. I thought I didn't notice him being particularly bad at all through the movie, but that closing monologue was just like, I did not like hearing these sentiments said like in Charlie Sheen's gross voice.
The movie feels like it would be better, like it deserves like a Blade Runner cut, like get rid of the all of the
voiceover
because it doesn't, I mean, it's fine, but they only really use it at the very beginning, maybe once in the middle of the movie and at the very end, and it's like,
and it gives you it gives you too much about the character. I don't need to know that much, you know.
So one thing that I think will be an interesting point of discussion for this film is kind of the greater conversation about war films. There's a famous quote from Francois Truffaut who says that there's no such thing as an anti-war film, essentially saying that by making a movie about it, you're inherently glorifying it. And Roger Ebert, in his review, gave this a very, very positive review, said essentially like, I wish he'd lived to see this film because it would have changed his mind.
Right.
What do you guys think of that?
Interesting.
Because essentially he elaborated, to go on and say, like, for a film that like shows you how like it's on the ground, it's gritty, and it essentially makes war not look like fun.
Well, and the Vietnam War is especially because like America were the villains in the Vietnam War, and so every Vietnam War I've ever watched, which to be honest isn't actually that many, I always go in with that lens, with how, because they're always made by Americans, which is fine because it's Hollywood, and so I'm not angry that it's being made by Americans, but if there's an ounce of and maybe there was wrong on both sides. It's like that's so missing what's the great injustice about the Vietnam War. And this, like, what's it called? Da 5 Bloods, for example, feels like it's trying to say, hey, there's two sides to every story, whereas this film is like unrelentingly depicting the American, like it's not for a little bit, and then it unequivocally shows America as the bad guys, and then all it is like, what do you do when you're the lost sons of the Vietnam War and you're just going along? You know, how do you continue with that? Yeah.
And it's also worth pointing out that this is semi-autobiographical on Oliver Stone's part. He's a Vietnam War vet, and it's currently, it was the first Hollywood film to be made by the veteran of the Vietnam War, and he's currently the only director to win Best Director who's a war vet. Clint Eastwood was in the military during the Korean War, but didn't go to Korea.
Is it the only Vietnam vet ever, or the only Vietnam vet to make a movie about the Vietnam War to win?
Like the way it's written says like it's the only Vietnam vet.
I'd be willing to say that's probably not true, but I'll trust you. I can't.
I mean, like, and it's one of these things that's like you find like some indie movie and they go, "Oh, it's not a Hollywood movie. That doesn't count," you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he was the first, and he's the only one to win Best Picture. So those are reasonably easily verifiable. Yeah. I'm curious, like you touched on it there, AJ, but like, what are you guys taught in school about the Vietnam War?
It was to stop communism is the main point what we're taught in school.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's how, you know, we had to defend our freedom, and the communists were gonna take them over, and we had to try and liberate them.
Yeah, it's funny. I've never heard that narrative. Like that's how like well assessed. Oh, they were trying American like bigwigs were trying to steal land and get make money basically is what the like everyone just accepts that that's the story over here. It's funny that there's a hero narrative.
Yeah, the way I remember it from I guess high school was like, so you go through everything and you get to World War II and you spend a lot of time on World War II, and then we didn't
It's the big one.
Like history class stopped with like the AIDS epidemic, I guess. And so when we got to like Korea and Vietnam and things like that, those were like America. Basically, it was like America set its globalization policy in World War II by being these interventionists, and then we did that and we kind of became the world police essentially through all of these wars. That's how I came away from it. And so you see that again with Korea, and to a much greater extent with Vietnam.
Yeah, it's no wonder that you get taught a lot of World War II in American history classes, because America come off pretty good in that one.
Yeah. Well, apparently,
like did America take part? It doesn't matter. Like we were the Deus Ex Machina of World War II. Let's just focus on that one.
Because apparently, like in German history classes, they're quite confronting about the horrors of World War II, and it's very much like Hitler was evil. Like it's because I feel like you're still, especially in America, you'd still be taught like Germany's pretty. They have a tendency to do these things, but yeah, it's like no, we did these things, and we have to live with the history of that forever, essentially. And things like denying the Holocaust are actually like finable and punishable with prison time. But yeah, it is interesting though, because I didn't actually pick up that this was a Vietnam movie until afterwards, because at no point in the film do they use the song "Fortunate Son" by Creedence Clearwater Revival. So I was like, this has all the aesthetics of Vietnam, but they're not explicitly telling me that it is by.
They do use "Ask Alice" though, which is in the similar toy box. Speaking of the music though, is the score from anything, or is it the Platoon score? Because that music was so familiar, and I've never seen a frame of this movie before I watched it 12 hours ago.
Yeah, it was George Delarue. And
it must be used in something else, like or many other things, because I feel like I've seen it before. Heard it before.
I actually really liked the scene where they also like "Tracks of My Tears" by Smokey Robinson. That was a good scene, and it's a great song as well.
We haven't really said what did everybody think of.
I was just
the film.
getting to that.
Okay, I'm just bouncing, boing, boing. Boing, boing.
Yeah. What did everyone think of the film? Let's go, AJ. You can go last. All right, Vincent. What did you think of the film?
Well, already knowing like the truth about Vietnam, because obviously I don't take face value about everything I'm taught in school. Like I've done my own research and like History Channel docs on the Vietnam War, and haven't really watched much outside like a Forrest Gump, which touches on it for a bit. But yeah, war is fucked up, and we never should have been there. And I think the thing with Charlie Sheen is that he's supposed to be such a blank slate, like just like this raw man who he left school because he wasn't learning anything. He's a blank slate and he wants purpose. And he's like, well, I can fight for my freedom and get my purpose. Then by the end, it's supposed to be a shell of a man, but he doesn't really convey that all that well. But I think that's the narrative this is trying to show. Like even like a guy that's a blank slate and genuinely wants to fight for his country, fight because other guys are fighting. He got raised through money. He was able to go to university. Like fuck that, I'm fighting. And then at the end, he's like, pointless. Everything about this war is pointless, and yet it kept going on for more years until 1975 was when we left, and this movie ends in 1970. So we were still in Vietnam 5 years after when this movie takes place. But I think it is brutal, it is honest, and I think it's great.
Yeah.
Nice.
Great.
Yeah, I think I did not enjoy watching it. I totally see, I fully understand all the critical praise and stuff. I don't think you're supposed to enjoy watching it, obviously, but it was hard to watch. I felt like the first act was very slow. Like there's really nothing going on in the beginning. Like it's a lot of world building and showing you what Vietnam was like for the soldiers. And then once they come to the village is really where everything just starts. And so I felt like the pacing was a little bit inconsistent, but yeah, overall I see it as being a good movie. I rated it 4 stars, but I didn't give it, or 3.5 stars, but I didn't give it a heart. I think that's how that's what I intended to do. I don't know if that's what showed up.
I don't know how to work this new fandangled letterbox.
Yes, a similar kind of thing. I think you and I had a similar experience, Brent. But like I said, I watched this at work on a particularly slow day, and I watched it for like half an hour, 40 minutes or something, and then I got a phone call, and I was on the phone for like half an hour, 40 minutes, kind of thing, and then went back and finished the film, and it was like I wasn't super into it before I got that phone call, and I messaged like the Cult Classics group and said, like is Cult Classics just going to be these movies that are good but I don't feel anything about? Because that's kind of what we had with The Aviator last month, is that we were all like, yeah, this is a good film, but it didn't really make me feel anything. It didn't like, I didn't really buy into it completely. And I thought I was going to have the same kind of experience with Platoon, but then yeah, that second half of the film I like got really into it, and actually like it really affected me, and really got to me. And a lot of that is Berenger and Defoe, like their performances, and also both of them playing against type, because like Tom Berenger, known for, like you said, those kind of B movie where he's like the gun-toting action hero, and he's like, morally upstanding. And then Willem Dafoe obviously is just a fucking villain, like in real life. No, he seems like a lovely man in real life. He's just cursed to have like a horrific face. But he, yeah, and Berenger plays like this absolute like skis wad, and Willem Dafoe and Willem Dafoe's like the most kind of morally upstanding person in their platoon.
Whoa! You say he's morally upstanding, but he was smoking weed, man. All right.
Yeah, no, he deserved his death. Like,
that shot of him dying with his hands in the air, that's the thing, right?
Yeah, okay, that's like the poster for the film.
The cover, and it's the poster, and it's all these things, and I'm like, that's the climax of the freaking movie. How can you get away with that?
Yeah, it is interesting because that's based on an actual photo taken in Vietnam of like a soldier with his hands. It's like won a Pulitzer or whatever, like one of these kind of famous photographs. But in that scene, so yeah, he puts his hands up in the air because he's been shot by Tom Berenger, and then crawls away mortally wounded, but then does that, reaches his hands up to the heavens before being shot multiple times. But like he was covered in squibs and had in his hand like the thing to detonate them. You can see, well, apparently, according to Willem Dafoe, you can see him drop it from the helicopter shot. And then, so when it got to it, he wasn't able to control the squibs anymore. That's why there's no blood. Because the rest of the movie is quite gory, and he's supposed to be like, psh, psh, psh. But then they were like, the performance was too good. We have to use that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It kind of makes it cooler.
Yeah. It's like it's one of those like, yeah, it's cool watching a movie like this and seeing something that's immediately iconic. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is, and like it must be so cool being on set and being like, oh, fuck yeah, like this is gonna be the DVD cover,
Charlie Sheen sitting on
what DVDs.
Charlie Sheen sitting on set being like, this is gonna make my career. I'm gonna win an Oscar.
Also, we didn't mention it, but two other kind of recognizable faces that pop up. We will get to you, AJ, don't worry. But John C. McGinley, Dr. Cox from Scrubs, is in this movie.
I've seen Dr. Cox from Scrubs. He was in The Rock, which we watched.
He was in Wild Hogs.
Wild Hogs.
And we watched The Rock for Mike Noise's podcast recently. And it's really funny to not think an actor is from something, for most of your life, and then slowly realize he was in a lot of things before the thing you thought he was famous for. And the best part,
because I just thought he was in Wild Hogs.
I just thought he was in Are We Done Yet? And in this, he's definitely like playing a character, which is quite interesting. He's in Office Space as well, but he's like putting on a bit of an accent in this, which is cool. But there's a part where he's asking Tom Bergeron if he can have 3 days off to go visit his wife in Hawaii, and after he's sort of like pitching it to him, so what do you say there, Chief Aruni? And it's like, that's a Scrubs line. That's a Dr. Cox line. Chief Aruni. Like, it makes you wonder how much did John C. McGinley bring to Dr. Cox in that respect, because it feels like such a...
I'm sure he was thinking, okay, what does this doctor need? I know. I'll use my platoon energy.
So and then also Johnny Depp shows up as well.
Yeah.
Who I saw in the credits and saw when his name, he pops up at the end because it goes through like all the actors with their names in the end credits. But I can't remember anything he did. I think I maybe saw him smoking weed at one point in the movie.
When they go in and the bit where they sing Tracks of My Tears, he's one of the guys in there.
Right.
He's the translator at the village
role.
too.
Yeah. That's what I was.
Okay.
So I saw his name in the opening credits, and then I spent basically the first hour and a half of the movie looking at everyone who's not Tom Bergeron or Berenger or it's not Tom or John C. McGinley or Charlie Sheen, and saying, wait, is that Johnny Depp? Is that Johnny Depp?
You look at Keith David. Is that Johnny Depp?
I thought Keith David was awesome in this film as well.
He's amazing.
I think he's great.
Forrest Whitaker too.
Forrest Whitaker. Isn't he also in Good Morning Vietnam?
Would he have been? Because I know they came out the same year.
Year later.
A year later? Okay. Or within a year of each other, I guess is what I meant. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. What about you, AJ?
What did I think? I thought it was pretty good. I thought that it's an interesting movie where I've done this before, maybe even for Movie Club. I made the mistake of just putting this on in the lounge at like 5 p.m. and I live with people, right? And so like people are like making their dinner as like an innocent Vietnamese woman is getting shot in the head by an American soldier. It's funny because you go, if someone's like, oh, what is Platoon about? I would answer that with it's about sort of the factions within an American platoon in Vietnam War, and how there's like two leaders and allegiances are split between the two leaders. To be honest, the inciting incident is one of those leaders killing or being responsible for the death of the other.
Yeah, really, it's about love.
Family.
Yeah, it's a power of love, man. But that's over halfway before Willem Dafoe dies. And so it's interesting, and like the point where it becomes clear that Tom Bergeron and Willem Dafoe don't like each other, that's like about the halfway mark of the movie. And so it's interesting, you sort of touched on it before, Brett, that it's a movie where like nothing happens till they get to the village. But if you were going to tell someone what it's about, you'd explain the second half of the movie. You'd explain the second act of the movie. You wouldn't even explain the third act. Like, it's just, that's, So I thought that's not to say what if I did or didn't like it. I did like it. But I just thought that was interesting that you, like, I watch war movies and I'm sort of really interested to know what it's actually about. And it was kind of I liked that as a story, I guess. And I thought that a lot of the like, just from a filmmaking perspective, like those war scenes are like crazy good. Those are excellent. I thought
those war scenes are crazy.
but like,
imagine if that actually happened.
Like you gotta stop and think about like how much had to be set up for all of this to work out in this movie. Like, humans did this on a budget. in a time frame. You know, that always blows my
Yeah.
mind when looking at complicated movie scenes.
That budget and time frame was $6 million and 54 days.
That's so cheap and
That's
so
unreal.
short.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
the climax especially, I thought, was such an excellent setup of sequences. And yeah, I was blown away by that stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, especially when you compare it to the other Sheen Vietnam War movie, Apocalypse Now, is like
You were gonna say hot shots.
Hot shots.
yeah. Yeah, like that famously, you know, took like a year and a half to film and went massively over budget. Have you guys all seen Apocalypse Now?
Hot shots. I haven't seen
seen-
Apocalypse Now. No.
I
No.
forgot which cut I
Whoa,
saw,
whoa,
but
whoa.
like the original cut or whatever.
I haven't seen the final cut that was released like a year or two
Yeah.
ago, but Apocalypse Now is one of the movies that's like, don't watch the director's cut. It's just longer. It's not like, it's one of those ones like, yeah, it's actually better just the theatrical cut. Yeah, Apocalypse Now is great. I'm sure we'll roll it now for next week.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk, just loop back around to the like, what do you guys think about the like, is this an anti-war film, and is there such thing as an anti-war film? You can take a moment, it's fun.
Yeah, I think that to the extent that you can have an anti-war film, I think this does a pretty good job of it. Because like I said, I didn't enjoy watching it. And he does a really excellent job of telling the macro story of the politics of like American politics and the war and all that stuff through the micro lens of the interrelations that are happening within this platoon. So you get both stories at the same time. And so I think it's really effective storytelling. And I think that I don't that's such a good question. Because in order to you know, create those amazing war scenes, like, you know, you have to hire an explosives guy, you have to do all of these things, like there's all the mechanics of it feel very much like you're glorifying war. But through the storytelling,
you have a military advisor on set and stuff.
yeah. I think through the storytelling though, you come away with something that really doesn't do that necessarily. Like to Vincent's point, like when you see Forrest Gump and all of his, you know, he's running through the forest, saving everyone, getting shot in the ass, like that's glorifying war because he's the big hero who saves 30 people one at a time or whatever, right? But this, like, no one wins. There's no upside, you know. I don't know.
Yeah. I can see why Roger Ebert like singled this one out, because like a lot of movies, and obviously when this quote was made, it was pre like Saving Private Ryan, which I would say is like one of the other big kind of examples of like showing just how horrific war is. And so, yeah, it is interesting. But I guess it's also always about like the audience's interpretation of it as well, because you could make like someone could watch Platoon and be like, and come away from it being like, fuck yeah, those explosions were mean. But it's like, obviously some movies are harder than others to do that with, because it's like, okay, how like real are you going to be? And the quote kind of came up again a few years ago because Clint Eastwood claimed that American Sniper is an anti-war film. And American Sniper is famously like American propaganda kind of thing. That's why everyone doesn't like it. Have you guys seen American Sniper?
Yeah, I didn't finish it.
I think it's a pretty good film. It's a there's obviously the baby scene lets it down that they use just very obviously a fake baby, and everyone's like, look how shit the movie is because of this one thing. But it's like, it's an incredible performance by Bradley Cooper. He's really good at the film, but it's like, yeah, Chris Kyle is like maybe not who we should be glorifying with a film, and like maybe Clint Eastwood's not the person that should be telling it, because you put a filmmaker like Clint Eastwood who's very like America and very war and stuff like that you kind of blind those things. Whereas I think the unique perspective of Oliver Stone, having actually gone through the Vietnam War, The fact that he made 3 movies about the Vietnam War kind of tells you that it's like, I guess this was like important, probably therapeutic for him as well.
What were the other 2?
Wikipedia actually describes this as the first film in a trilogy of Vietnam War films directed by Stone, but they essentially just he made 3 Vietnam War films. The other 2 are Born on the 4th of July, starring Tom Cruise, and Heaven and Earth, which stars Tommy Lee Jones.
Huh.
Got all the Toms in there. I think that as I feel like I've said all I need to say about this specific part, but like to me it depends
That's
on
all I have to say about that.
To me it depends on the war, and it depends who's telling the story. As I said, Vietnam War, I think. Well, actually, the Vietnam War movies are often because of who directors are, very self-reflective and very self-critical of America. I probably can't actually think of a positive Vietnam War movie directed by America.
I think that like an example of why you would like a classic example of why you would say there's no such thing as an anti-war film would be something like Apocalypse Now. You think of like you haven't seen it, but you think of Apocalypse Now, you think of I love the smell of napalm in the morning and the like Ride of the Valkyries bombing, and you're like, fuck, those were cool scenes. Whereas you think of like Platoon, you think like, oh, like that young girl getting shot in the head, that was horrific. And so I think like
right. Sorry. Yep.
No, when you were talking about that, Richard, it reminded me of American History X. Like it suffers a really similar fate where the movie, I think, is pretty decidedly anti-racist, anti-Nazi, right? But there are so many people who, because of the way that you have to tell that story and to do it with authenticity, you get into those aesthetics, right? And when you combine that with really good direction and interesting choices like that, you get people who are walking away singing the songs that Ethan Suplee's singing about being extremely racist, and get people who are talking about the curb stomping scene and like how glorified that feels. So like it gets lost. I guess the message gets lost in the
and I guess with American History X as well, because it's told in like a non-linear structure. Your average film goer might be like, no, he's still racist at the end. There's that scene near the end where he's still racist.
It's Fight Club syndrome. Like this is one of the most pertinent filmic conversations of the 2020s, probably maybe existed before. I mean, this is the whole Joker. This is what the conversation around Joker was, and you extrapolate that to war, and it becomes like a wider problem, especially because of how effective war movies have been as like military recruitment and war video games, especially. You want to talk about there's no anti-war film, there's no anti-war video game. My God, like literally putting the gun in the hands of the player. I was saying
there's a great video essay about that as well. That check it. It's like what's it called? It's like, what does Call of Duty believe?
Yeah, what does Call of Duty believe? And it's like, because the recent Call of Duty game, they were like, we're not taking a side, and it's like you play the game and it's like, this feels like taking a side, like
because it's like I have to kill these people who are trying to kill me. Like,
that's told me to.
Yeah. That's by Jacob Geller, really good video essayist. And another really cool video essay, which I feel like I've brought up on Movie Club before.
Is this just the American Pie one?
No. It's the Brett 2 one. No, there's one by, I think it's Now You See It, that talks about why is there no definitive Iraq war movie. And I thought it was such an interesting, it's something I'd never considered, because you look at let's say the trilogy of wars. I know there are more wars, but let's say the trilogy of wars that typically get made films about. You got World War II, Vietnam, and Iraq, right? And World War II, you can. Most people are pretty comfortable with American filmmakers spinning it so that America are the heroes of war. I'm sure there were some horrific deeds done by Americans in World War II, but World War II crucially had a villain, had a comic book villain, like a cartoon villain, right?
The guy was like Hitler.
Yeah, yeah.
He was
Vietnam.
literally Hitler.
Vietnam War movies, I think, by and large, are very interesting because most filmmakers who tackle it are tackling with that self-reflective, self-critical view. Like all the best ones, like even I haven't, as I say, I haven't seen Apocalypse Now, but I assume the ultimate message is not like, "And we did it, America." I don't know, maybe it is. I haven't
Well,
seen.
I mean, Apocalypse Now has the benefit of being like it's about a mission with it, like same with like 1917, where it's like it's not really like about the war, it's about this one man's mission within that happens during the war.
Right. And so I think Vietnam War movies often have this really interesting kind of narrative flavor to it where there's a lot of guilt on the part of the storyteller. But America are not yet ready to face their sins for Iraq. So Iraq war movies are American Sniper, Zero Dark 30, The Hurt Locker, where they're about...
I was going to say, like, isn't The Hurt Locker the definitive Iraq war film? It won Best Picture.
Right. So what he's saying basically is like, yeah, maybe you're right, but you'll have to watch the video. But he talks in it about like how the Iraq war movies typically focus on a specialist. The Hurt Locker is about a bomb disarmer. The American Sniper is about a sniper. So that they are not ready to go broad and go like, we probably shouldn't have invaded.
What's America doing over there?
Yeah. Yes. They go special, so they have they have the excuse of being, it's a character piece. It's a character piece, you know? And he talks about Jarhead, which is a Gulf War movie, and how that's the closest thing we have to a definitive Iraq war movie, because Jarhead is about how America brainwashes 18-year-old boys to think killing is fun, and they send them to fight in their wars, and how it's a movie about meatheads, jarheads even, that are pawns, you know. And as everyone always points out, the sequels to Jarhead miss this point and are just pro-war movies. So like it's it's such an interesting idea, and I can't wait for the first American Iraq war movie that is like, we shouldn't be here, and it wins Oscars because Hollywood's ready to be trendy with that sort of thing, I guess.
One of the things, to bring it back around to Platoon, so I didn't read all of the IMDb because I didn't want to out Richard on this episode. But one thing that I did read was that they the United States would not offer any assistance.
Assistance, yeah.
So all of the military, thank you, Richard. So all of the military equipment in it that's being flown and, you know, driven around and stuff is all from the Philippines. Right. Yeah. And so that's where because they filmed in the Philippines, and so that's all the equipment came from them because they wouldn't get the blessing from the U.S. military.
That is actually super interesting as well, because that feels like, you know, like an admission of guilt, you know.
Right.
That they like took a look at the script and were like, no, and so it's like, yeah, that means you're doing it right. And the thing of like, you can't make like an anti something. There's a TV tropes page called "Do Not Do This Cool Thing," which talks about it. It says that it mentions Platoon, and it says apparently this film actually encouraged people to recruit. So okay, but I would say, like, it points out gangster films as well, and I would say that like what this film, like The Irishman to gangster films, is like, you know, Martin Scorsese spent his whole career glorifying it, and then towards the end of it made a film that was like, no, actually, like like it's fucking lame.
It's not even cool.
Yeah. And so that's kind of like Platoon has that same kind of feeling.
And it's such a valid conversation to have. I think it's inherently anti-creative, which is why creatives don't know what to say about, especially like progressive creatives, is that like us is that because like I'm so sympathetic to both sides of the argument. Like in a perfect world, you should be able to make a movie about anything and depict events in that movie to convey your point. We hope you're on the right side of history. We hope that you're saying good things by showing these bad things, but you're always going to have people who take the wrong message away. And the question is just, is it worth it? What's the trade-off? Is it worth?
Well, if you win Best Picture and Best Director, I'd argue it. Yeah. No, sorry to ruin your point.
No, you're totally right. Like you made my point. Like that's literally the question. Is great art worth the influence of great art? I don't know. I don't know the answer, you know?
Yeah. All right, well, we're getting close to the end of it, but just to celebrate, it's been 10 years now since the famous Charlie Sheen interview. And what's everyone's favorite quotes? What are your memories of that time? I was banging 7-gram rocks.
Got tiger blood in me.
I remember even at the time thinking it was a very uncool thing. Like I was not charmed by Charlie Sheen. I thought it was fucking weird, and he was weird for doing it.
Remember, and like he went on tour afterwards, like this Truth Bombs
winning
tour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh god. Yeah.
No good.
He's chilled out a bit though.
That's good.
All right, so I guess if no one else has any other favorite quotes,
I do.
Oh yes,
I think what's the most machismo quote in this was Kevin Dillon's Bunny character, how he couldn't decide what he would enjoy when he gets home, pussy or the Indy 500.
I think Richard meant more Charlie Sheen quotes, but I'm glad you took it back to Platoon.
Yeah, yes. I did, and thank you. But also that could be like a quote from that Charlie Sheen interview, just as easily.
He does both in one day.
Yeah. I'm pussy in Indy 500. All right, so I've now pulled up the cult classic list. This is a list of now 208.
What got added?
Classic films. I'm getting to that.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was excited. I'm sorry.
So I actually added 5 movies this month.
Wait, what are the rules? Go back. What are the rules? What are the rules?
Well, you threw me by asking.
I'm sorry. I was excited. I wasn't.
Okay, so cult classic movies have to be. They have to not contain any sequels, otherwise we'll cover them for film franchise fortnights. They have to be considered culturally or aesthetically relevant.
Significantly relevant.
Sorry. Yeah. Or and be a minimum of 10 years old. So like every month, obviously new films become over 10 years old, and those films added don't have to fit the first 2 criteria. So each month we add usually one film. This month, like June 2011 was like a big year, so big month. Sorry. So I've added one might be a point of contention though. So I've added Super 8, Jiro Dreams of Sushi, the documentary, Drive, Bernie, the Richard Linklater film with Jack Black in it,
so good,
and Green Lantern. But is Green Lantern part of like a DC franchise?
I mean, it's dead.
If there were if there were Green Lantern sequels, I would say yes.
Yeah.
Green Lantern's not even in Zack Snyder's Justice League. As soon as you make the connection, we'd have to watch Green Lantern, but they haven't.
Yeah. Like it's not. If we're doing Batman and then the DCEU, like Green Lantern will never fit in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know that this is like extremely belabored, but you've said that when you do Batman, you're not doing the DCEU Batman stuff. You're only doing, or you're doing it as a separate.
I imagine we'd do. Here's how I've always thought we'd do it. We'd do a Superman episode, we'd do a Batman episode, and then we'd do the DCEU. That's what I'd imagine. So we'd do Richard Donner Superman, Burton Schumacher Superman, probably Nolan Batman as a separate episode. and then we'd do the DCEU starting from Man of Steel through Wonder Woman.
Oh, okay, so that's getting to probably 20 movies then. Yeah.
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 Green Lantern's not part of it.
Green Lantern's not in it at all. Yeah.
No.
All right, so we should re-randomize this list at some point to put all these late additions in, which would be fun. But
I mean,
right now,
statistically, they're just as likely to be picked as
They
anything
are.
else.
they are.
I swear if we get Green Lantern.
115.
Did you guys hear that?
115.
150.
115.
It's disappeared. Yeah.
Okay, 115. Oh, this is what I need to Google.
Why
Is
was
it directed
Charlie
by a famous
Sheen?
person?
Why was Charlie Sheen in Hot Shots? What after Platoon he did a movie that
Only
made fun of
5
war?
5 years after Platoon.
Yeah,
What the
5 years.
fuck? That's
Yes.
insane.
Platoon was 86 and Hot Shots was 91.
That's so
When was Part Two?
disrespectful.
Part 2
Uh,
probably like 93 or something. It was pretty
Yeah.
close.
Even
There's
close
also
to.
this scene which I was going to have as my background, but in Hot Shots Part 2, you have Charlie Sheen parodying his character from Platoon
Dude.
with a voiceover playing, and then you hear another voiceover from a boat coming the other way, and it's Martin Sheen from Apocalypse Now, and
so
they cross over
funny.
each other and are like, and they both say, "I loved you on Wall Street."
That's so funny, but I can't believe that. Like, what does Oliver Stone think of that?
All right. So the film we're watching next month, is over 3 hours long.
See you guys.
Let me adjust something on my account really quick.
It's it's a World War One film.
Wow. Is it?
Apparently.
Is it All Quiet on the Western Front?
No,
Is it Lawrence of
it's-
Arabia?
no.
No.
It stars Omar Sharif.
When did it come
is
out?
oh fuck. Oh man, I know it. I can't think of the name of it. It's
It's 65.
Is it the Anna Karenina? Was that
No.
World War One? No, that's really
No.
long, and I think it has him in it too.
It also stars Alec Guinness, directed by David Lean.
The Bridge over River Kwai.
Live quiet.
No.
Don't know.
It's Dr. Zhivago.
That's
No
okay. That's
shit.
what I meant when I said
Ah, right.
Anna Karenina. That's what I meant.
When you said you couldn't when you were like, "Oh, I can't remember the name," I was like, "Brent probably has it."
Oh man, yeah.
Sam Neill is in a miniseries remake of Dr. Zhivago, and for a long time, that was all I knew that Dr. Zhivago was.
Wow.
Wow.
You said Sam Neill, and I thought Sam Elliott, and I was like, hell yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, agreed.
Mm.
Well, hey, thank you for joining
Dr.
us.
Trivago.
Trivago.
We'll see you guys next month for Dr. Zhivago. And if anyone's watched this all the way through and wants to get involved, patreon.com/Cult Popture, $15 a month will get you a spot up here with currently they haven't had a lot of people turning up to these in the last couple of months.
To be fair, we've had to do these a day later than we normally do, and we've
Right.
had a couple of people say that the day doesn't work for them, but we will try and make sure that next week is a
Next month.
Saturday, Sunday rather than a Sunday, Monday.
Alrighty. See you later, everybody. And I will stop recording.